disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Faro.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton, and breaking tonight, Rishi Sunak's government is rocked as Cabinet Office Minister Gavin Williamson is forced out following bullying allegations. But was it right for him to go? And will the MSM and the Blob, who arguably turned the usual cut and thrust of Westminster into some sort of scandal, believe they're more in control now than ever? I'll debate that with my superstar panel, Amanda Platel, Reverend Calvin Robinson and Rebecca Reid. The government's also at a loss, though, with how to stop the Channel crisis. But a bold new solution may have presented itself courtesy of Europe's most exciting new leader, and I'm asking you for the seal of approval. So should Britain follow in Italy's footsteps and stop male illegal migrants from disembarking on our shores? Former UKIP deputy Suzanne Evans and broadcaster Jenny Barnett battle it out in the clash at 9:25. Plus, why on earth should the UK pay £1 trillion in climate change reparations when China has polluted the globe more in 8 years than we have since the Industrial Revolution? In my digest next, I urge Fishy Rishi to stand firm against the likes of Red Ed Miliband, who want Britain to bankrupt itself in the name of liberal guilt. So I'm looking forward to that. As America goes to the polls, is Trump about to announce a new presidential bid?
I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida.
The Donald's political confidant Nigel Farage breaks down a crunch vote for the future of the US. He's live stateside at 9:35. Are thousands of Tory members deserting the party after the anti-democratic coronation of Sunak over Boris? Or Reform leader Richard Tice predicts a political revolution is looming. He's here at 10:20. Montecito Mona, Meghan Markle, meanwhile, she's at it again.
This woman, oh, she's difficult. Which is really just a euphemism, or probably not even a euphemism. It's really a code word for the B word.
So, as she cries sexism for being called difficult, Will the difficult Duchess of Sussex ever take responsibility for her own actions? It's round 2 of Meghan versus Meghan tonight as top US journalist Megyn Kelly joins me after going viral for her scathing takedown of the raging royal. Don't miss her live at 9:45. Tomorrow's newspaper front pages and Greatest Britain Union Jackass on the way too. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. So, Gavin Williamson is out. The MSM have claimed another scalp, and with the latest on that, it's the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. And as Dan was saying, we start with some breaking news. Sir Gavin Williamson has resigned from the cabinet following new allegations about his conduct. In his resignation letter, Sir Gavin told the Prime Minister the claims were becoming a distraction to the good work of the government. It comes after Deputy Chief Whip Anne Milton claimed he had tried to use an MP's financial difficulties as leverage. It's also been reported that he told a senior civil servant to slit your throat. Sir Gavin has denied bullying and says he refutes the characterisation of fresh allegations. MPs have voted against the release of documents related to security breaches by the Home Secretary. Members rejected the Labour motion by a majority of 92. Rishi Sunak brought Suella Braverman back into government just 6 days after she resigned from Liz Truss's cabinet over breaking the ministerial code. Ms Braverman broke security protocols by forwarding a highly sensitive document about immigration to her personal email and then sending it on to another MP. The RMT union says strikes on London's underground service will go ahead now. It's after last-minute talks failed to resolve a dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. Union officials say Transport for London has refused its offer to suspend strike action in exchange for a pause to job cuts. Meanwhile, more than 70,000 university lecturers and staff will walk out for 3 days later this month. The University and College Union says members at over 150 universities will stop work over pay, conditions and pensions. The strikes will take place on November 24th, 25th and the 30th and could impact 2.5 million students. The Met Police is promising to bring to justice Just Stop Oil protesters who caused disruption on the M25. It comes as Extinction Rebellion co-founder Roger Hallam was remanded in custody for almost a month. He was arrested and charged with conspiracy to cause a public nuisance after allegedly planning to join Just Stop Oil protests on the motorway. Activists have disrupted traffic on England's busiest highway for the past 2 days. 16 protesters were arrested today and 22 charged for actions yesterday. And Donald Trump has cast his vote in Florida as Americans across the country headed to the polls in the midterm elections.
We love you! We love you, man!
The former US president left the polling station accompanied by his wife Melania and to the cheers of supporters. Currently, the Democrats control both the House of Representatives and the Senate. President Biden is warning that a Republican victory could weaken the country's democracy. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Dan Wootton Tonight.
No high-profile politician or NGO has seriously made the case for reparations from China and the World Health Organization to the UK for the £400 billion and counting economic catastrophe they unleashed on the UK these past 3 years, thanks to the likely lab leak of COVID-19 and the despicable cover-up that followed. But instead, we're meant to sit idly by, smiling and nodding, as the international community, encouraged by hard-left Britain-hating goons like Red Ed Miliband, suggests the UK owes £1 trillion in reparations for the Industrial Revolution.
Loss and damage needs to be part of the core agenda of COP27. It is the duty and responsibility of global north to understand our difficulties and our plight.
Whereas we acknowledge and are thankful that, all parties would have eventually coalesced around the fact that loss and damage is absolutely required.
And we expect the largest emitters to take responsibility and to do their part in loss and damage and mitigation and adaptation.
Wealthy nations like the UK and Ireland stepping up on their climate finance commitments to help low-income countries that are disproportionately affected by the climate crisis.
Just to be clear, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but to be clear, a Labour
Absolutely,
government
it's about
would
supporting
give that
poorer
money.
countries. Completely right. And let me just say, it's morally right, Laura, but it's also in our self-interest too.
Those calls are insane and offensive. Above anything else, the rest of the world should be thanking Britain for the Industrial Revolution, which ushered in a raft of technological developments from transport to modern medicine that have actually caused life expectancy to soar across the globe, including in the developing world. But it's also not backed up by the reality of why we are currently facing what the deranged net zero extremists call the climate emergency. So here's the fact check of all fact checks. China is behind more pollution in just 8 years than the UK was since the Industrial Revolution, with the communist state responsible for 80 billion tonnes of carbon emissions from just 2013 to 2020, compared to Britain's 78 billion tonnes over the past 220 years. Meanwhile, we have reduced our emissions faster than any G7 country, a whopping 45% between 1990 and 2019, and are now responsible for under 1% of the world's CO2. But the liberal guilt of the West over the past 2 years, encouraged by woke movements like BLM, means previously sane politicians, including those within the Conservative Party, are starting to buy into such spurious and damaging arguments. Assad Rayman of War on Want told the Daily Mail today that paying reparations of 1,000 billions or 1,000,000 millions was the right thing to do. He said the UK was able to industrialise and take resources from the rest of the world and power its economy by burning fossil fuels. This is plainly morally the right thing to do. The UK should step up and accept the responsibility. And I mean, even Rishi Sunak at COP27 didn't back away from splashing the cash while the UK faces an unprecedented cost of living crisis set to see taxes soar and spending slashed.
The pandemic all but broke the global economy. And before coming here today, I spent last week working on the difficult decisions needed to ensure confidence and economic stability in my own country. But I can tell you today that the United Kingdom is delivering on our commitment of £11.6 billion. And as part of this, we will now triple our funding on adaptation to £1.5 billion by 2025.
But things could be about to get much worse. I have no doubt that with Labour in power, we'll still be signing over billion-quid cheques on a regular basis in climate reparations to assuage the white saviour complex folk like Miliband and take-the-knee Starmer seem to luxuriate in. The time has come for this Conservative government, led by Sunak, to stop pandering to this madness. China claims to be a developing country, but is responsible for 14% of all emissions in history, while we caused just 4.6%, with 80% of those before 1990. We must fight back against the Britain-hating rhetoric before a Labour government commits to a hellish cycle of reparations, dooming us to poverty as a country forevermore. To respond now, my superstar panel. Esteemed Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. So, Amanda Patel, they want £1 trillion from us in reparations, and Ed Miliband seems to think the concept's just great.
Very disappointing that Rishi didn't actually come out and say this is a whole pile of total nonsense, especially given this is a man who says, you know, I love this country, you know, this is really important to me. Everything about being British is just really fab. I sat down and I thought about it over breakfast after I'd finally got through being locked out of my cottage this morning. You're lucky to have me here, Dan.
Well, you look very put together well, despite
I got a
that.
jumper and a pair of leggings on. OK, but I'm here. And I just sort of thought, OK, what has the Industrial Revolution ever done for us and the rest of the world? Well, you go through the list. It turned countries which are mainly rural and totally impoverished. As you said, the life expectancy was 29 years old, if you were lucky. Turned them into industrial strengths. It improved people's wages. It lowered the cost of food. It provided more food. It started to give women jobs. It educated people more. And you just, you know, I ran out of paper writing the list. And you just think, well, since we gave that to you, and then I think they should be paying us. I think they should be paying us $2 trillion for what we've given the world, because they all took it. They all took our model. They all took the way that our new industrial revolution, and now they're all really prosperous, pumping CO2 into the atmosphere and trying to blame us for us. We will not have it.
And I mean, Calvin, the idea that China, as a developing country, I mean, what absolute rubbish, but that's what they claim, wouldn't have to pay a single thing in these reparations schemes. I mean, this is a scam.
It's a massive scam. Whose idea was it that we have to pay reparations, and who were we paying them to, and who voted for this? I don't remember this conversation taking place before the elections. I don't want to spend
But a conversation didn't take place about net zero either before the election.
Of course it didn't. But as Amanda said, the Industrial Revolution was an overall good, so we shouldn't be apologising for it in the first place. But if we did, if it was a badness, I don't think we should be apologising for the sins of our forebears. It's just exactly the same conversation as the CRT race reparations argument. You can't pay to apologise for something that you haven't done. It doesn't make any logical sense.
But also, if you're going to give reparations to anybody, women were functionally slaves for large periods of history. They couldn't vote, they couldn't own property. If you're going to start with reparations, then all women through history deserve reparations, and then you'd literally bankrupt the world.
I'm with Rebecca here. Let's have reparations. I think we should all get
I think women are as entitled to it as anybody else.
3 million.
I've been campaigning for reparations.
Women were owned as property.
But Rebecca, do you think there's any argument behind the Miliband theory of developed countries paying climate reparations to those in the developing world? Because at COP27, there's a growing momentum behind this idea. And I'm sorry, you saw this. Sunak didn't really rule it out.
I do think that there is an argument for it, but I think the number one country who should step up to do it would be China.
But they're not going to.
I would say there is a real difference between creating impact in climate change, which we did when we didn't know that climate change existed, aka Industrial Revolution, and continuing to do it now, aka China. China is not a developing country, it's a developed country. I don't know how, this is a bit like when you're trying to get a children's bus ticket when you're like 19. They are 100% grown
But they're not
up.
even at COP27.
China but China don't care. China don't give, nearly said a bad word. China don't care at all. Yes,
they don't give a bad word.
They don't give a bad word at all. There are countries that, where the rising sea level will actively damage and impact their quality of life. And they arguably should be given reparations by the countries that made that happen. And we are not one of those countries.
What about them giving us the whole world reparations after giving us COVID?
Well, of course. I say they owe us 400 billion already,
more
by
than
the
that.
way.
You have to quadruple it in this world.
But they would respect us more. I don't get the sense, and this is based on very little, that China respects us a huge amount. I think they think we're a bit wet.
But Calvin, this is the elephant in the room, though, isn't it? China is the elephant in the room, always. And China is hardly mentioned by anyone on stage at COP27, when they are now belching out more carbon than the UK, Europe and the US combined.
I know, this is it. We contribute 1% to the 0...
Less than 1%
to the 0.04%. It is nothing. Infinitesimal what we contribute to the global emissions, but it doesn't make a difference anyway. But if it did make a difference, China's the one to be chasing down. And if they're not in the room at COP27 and we're still talking about giving them money, it's all a big joke. They're laughing all of them.
Rebecca, I know you want a Labour government, but isn't this actually where folk are going to start thinking very, very carefully about handing our money over to a bloke like Miliband who wants to pay reparation?
What I want more than a Labour government, what I want most of all, is people to realise that this doesn't need to be a, oh, you eat vegan fake bacon, you're stupid argument. The most sensible thing that we could do right now would be take all that money, any money we've got, and channel it into making the most efficient, green, self-created energy. So we're no longer reliant on any... Well, we've got to find...
We've got no money after what we paid out because of unnecessary lockdowns
the past 2 years.
We could, if you invested properly, and I know it would have to look down the back of the sofa, but if you invested properly, we could actually go back to having an industrial revolution. We have got incredible minds in this country, and we ignore them.
It is that, look,
we should lead the way.
First, the ideas have to come.
Yeah.
You know, there are, you know, the ideas to actually revolutionise the way we use energy, the way we source it, and that can happen, but at the moment there's no initiative.
We've got coal, we've got gas, we've got plenty of fuel. We don't,
but only for 100 years. We've only got about 100 years, and I don't think we should use that to get us through.
Really quickly. It can develop, but
we could do better.
We should be a little bit worried about Ed at the moment.
Why?
Yes. Well, because I think he's going a bit, you know, I think ever since he kind of stabbed his brother in the back, he's never been the same.
Do you remember that
he actually was salivating at his mouth when he was making that speech. I think that's called frothing at the mouth. It's not good.
I mean, it's a true sign of a man who is prepared to stab their brother in the back.
And the country.
I'm going to look up the definition of a developing country as well, because I don't understand how China is one. Or India. India has a space program, and we're still sending money over there.
Absolutely. And nuclear weapons. I mean, it's madness. It's completely madness. Rick Reed, Calvin Robinson, Amanda Patel.
You forgot my name then, didn't you? You forgot my name again.
No, I didn't. As if I could ever do that. My superstar panel, and they're here all night. And Amanda isn't locked into her house.
I can go home. The door's open now.
With less than 2 hours left until the first polls close in the US midterms, is Donald Trump ready to finally announce his comeback? His political confidant Nigel Farage joins me to break down a crucial vote for the future of America. He's live in Arizona, one of those really critical states, very shortly. But first in the clash, should Britain follow in Italy's footsteps and stop male illegal migrants from disembarking to our shores? Former UKIP Deputy Suzanne Evans and broadcaster Jenny Barnett clash next, but as ever, your views on this subject matter most to me. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me using the handle @gbnews. Our poll running there too. The results and the clash straight after the break.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deems & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online, this is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England,
Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
On radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
Time now for The Clash. Now, as our illegal migrant crisis continues to spiral out of control, with almost 40,000 reaching our shores this year and counting, something's got to give. And it looks like the Italians might be onto something. While fishy Rishi Sunak wastes time fruitlessly seeking answers at French President Emmanuel Macron's door, Italian PM Giorgia Meloni's 2-month-old government has wasted no time in cracking down, banning male migrants from disembarking on their shores. Over the past week, the country has refused to assign 4 migrant rescue ships with a port of safety, instead allowing only vulnerable people, mainly women and children, to get off, leaving approximately 500 migrants still at sea. The furious charity-run vessels are refusing to leave, slamming the government's actions as illegal. But what do you think? Should Rishi follow Italy's footsteps and stop male migrants from disembarking on our shores? Let me know your thoughts. Email me, Dan at gbnews.uk. Our poll running at GB News. But to help you make up your mind, I'm going to bring in the former UKIP deputy, Suzanne Evans, and TV presenter and actress Jenny Barnett. So, Suzanne, do you think Giorgia Meloni's onto something here?
Yeah, I think her government's got the right idea, really, to give refuge to those genuinely fleeing war and persecution, but take a tough approach to those involved in illegal migration, not least to stop the hugely profitable and highly unethical, despicable human trafficking. I think she's trying a kind of Australian approach, isn't she? The Australian government had this problem until John Howard's government recognised that it was an organised racket and took moves to stop it. So Australia almost completely stopped the boats coming at all by processing illegal arrivals offshore, by denying anyone that tried to get into Australia that way permanent residency, and by turning those boats back when it was safe to do so. In fact, even went further than Giorgia Meloni's doing. They stopped the boats, and then anyone that, very often these migrants will scuttle the boats, they'll sabotage them. So they simply transferred them in Australia to boats that couldn't be sabotaged and sent them on their way. And I think that's really what has to be done. The only way to stop this problem is to make it clear that anyone trying to enter a country by these means is simply not going to get in. And that's clearly what the new Italian government is trying to do. And it really is the only answer to this problem.
Jenny Barnett, you disagree?
Totally disagree.
Why?
They are a fascist government, right?
Oh,
we are
come on, Jenny.
Meloni is a fascist. She has accepted she's on the right wing. We have to solve the crisis.
Being on the right wing doesn't make you a fascist.
Okay, I accept this, maybe not. But we're looking at people. I want to know why they're stopping just the men and not the women and children. What do they think the men are going to do? What are they worried about?
Economic migrants, though, aren't they? Because if you look at the situation here, Jenny, the reality is the vast majority coming from Albania to join criminal gangs, prostitution rings, drug dealing rings, are men. They're young men. So what she's trying to do is say we're going to cut down on economic migrants.
All countries should be trying to solve the problem of the criminal gangs and the traffickers. You cannot make criminals of the people who are fleeing countries. There will be a percentage of people who are criminals, but we're not talking about that. You're talking about people who are trying to save their lives. The globe is in confusion. It is calamity at the moment, and people are moving all over the place. all over the place because of what's happening to their
So
country.
do you not think we should protect our borders at all?
I don't. We are all humanitarian in this situation. We should be all, not men, not gender, not teachers, nurses, doctors, lawyers who are coming here who want to work. We need the work.
So in your view, open up our borders, anyone can come in, anyone can use the NHS, anyone can lean on our already overwhelmed housing system.
Expats go across the world and they're not called migrants, they're not called asylum seekers.
No, because they do it legally. Because they follow a process. We can't just turn up in China or the US. We've got to follow a process. And to be frank, Jenny, most of these folk coming from Albania are living a perfectly nice life. It's a NATO country.
There is a percentage of people who are coming over here that the world should be looking at. We have to look at safe settlement. We have to look at safe routes for sanctuary. We have to give people who are fleeing
from NATO countries, Suzanne. Suzanne, do you want to come in here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to say, let's all get round to Jenny's house for a big party, because she clearly wants to open her doors to everybody. So let's all hive down there. Her house looks really nice. I wouldn't mind living there. Let's all pack round. You know, I'm sorry, Jenny, but if people were invading your house, you would have a very, very different view. Every country has the right to patrol its own borders. And let's be honest, this situation, we now have 87,000 asylum seekers languishing in around 300 hotels around the country. Some of them 4- and 5-star hotels that some of the, you know,
costing £7 million a day.
Nearly 1.2 million people on our housing waiting list would love to be in. It's costing £6.8 million a day, and we're living in a time of austerity.
I mean, Jenny, just before you come back in, Jenny, let me ask you a direct question. Are you happy to take in a migrant, an illegal migrant from Albania, without knowing what they're here for?
No, my flat, when we had a flat in London, we were living next door, this was a long time ago, to Albanians who were very naughty. They were pimps and they were doing all sorts of stuff. There's good and bad in everything. What I'm saying is...
But you're not happy to have one in your own home?
That's not the answer. The answer
so where do you want the 40,000 folk who've come here this year to live?
Listen, I'm going to answer you the way that politicians answer. Libya and Turkey have taken in millions of people. We've taken in thousands of people. As this climate crisis grows, there will be more people walking around. And if we cannot extend the hand of friendship, shame on us.
Suzanne, final word to you.
There's currently 87,000. We haven't not taken in thousands of people. We've taken in tens of thousands of people, and we're spending £6.8 million a day. By no account whatsoever can that be said to be stingy. And we're not talking here about people now fleeing war and persecution. We're talking about economic migrants who have travelled through safe countries to get here. If they really were fleeing war and persecution, they'd be very happy to stay in the safer countries that they get to first of all. And what's worse, Jenny, is you are depriving
Jenny, you just come in very quickly. Just come in very quickly, Jenny, before we head.
Of support as well. You really are.
I want to know.
Can I go on? Can I go on? You know, we've got a situation in Kent, which of course is seeing most of the downsides of this now. Children who can't get a school place because of the abnormal influx of migrants. They're having to be bused 25 miles away to go
Suzanne,
to school.
I'm going to let
the council has said.
Jenny respond.
As long as we operate in an us and them, as long as we see people travelling around the world as them, not us. As long as we throw personal jibes like, would you have somebody in your house? Would you not have somebody?
It's not a personal jibe. It's a practical question, Jenny, because I don't know where you expect the 50,000 who are going to arrive this year to live. And I, for one, am not prepared to keep paying £7 million a day.
I would not be sitting talking to you. The hand of friendship had not been extended to my family who fled Russia and then fled the camps.
Yes, And there needs to be
Nick, don't argue
generosity.
with that.
There
Nick,
needs to be
listen to
generosity for genuine asylum seekers and refugees. But Jenny, the criminals coming from Albania are not that. But it's been a fascinating debate. Please come back and we'll do it soon. TV presenter and actress Jenny Barnett and the former UKIP deputy Suzanne Evans. So who do you agree with this? Should we follow Italy's footsteps and block male migrants? Helen on email says, of course we should follow Italy's lead on stopping the male migrants getting off the boats. Maloney is a remarkable woman with such courage. From Janet, also on email, yes, Dan, we should do like Italy and wake up. We have 2 stately homes near us and they have been filled with these men. Wonderful houses which we couldn't afford a night in. And Annie on Twitter says there aren't any. No one can be declared illegal until their claim has been processed. How could any civilised nation arbitrarily ban one gender? And your verdict is now one. Wow, this one is overwhelming, actually. 92% of you agree that we should stop male illegal migrants from entering Britain. Just 8% of you don't want to follow the lead of Italy. Now, coming up, as she moans about being called difficult, will the Duchess of Sussex ever take responsibility for her actions or just continue to scream sexism? Ready for a right royal rumble? Superstar US journalist Megyn Kelly. But first, as the polls are about to close in the midterm elections, is Trump about to announce a new presidential bid? Our very own Nigel Farage, he is live in Arizona as this crunch vote for the soul of America goes on. Nigel with me live.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Time now for What the Farage, and breaking tonight, millions of Americans are voting in one of the most highly anticipated elections in US history, with polls in some states closing in less than 2 hours, actually. So these are the critical midterms. They decide senators, governors and even city mayors across America. President Biden and the Democrats risk losing both the House and the Senate if this huge red wave of Republican victories comes off. That would leave the door wide open for Donald Trump to make a sensational return to the White House in 2024. He's teased a, quote, big announcement for a week today. Watch this.
I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida.
And Nigel Farage is there at the heart of the action, joining me now live from Arizona. So look, Nigel, I know so much is going on, lots of big races in Arizona, but can we talk about the Trump question? What do you know? Is this going to be an announcement that he's going to run for president a week today?
Oh, I think it's without doubt, Dan. I've said for a long, long time that I thought Trump would run again. I mean, clearly, if the results tonight were deeply disappointing, he might think about it again. But, you know, it's the midterms. It's the midterms. It nearly always goes against the incumbent president. The only question here is not whether there'll be a red wave. How big is it going to be? You know, do they finish up with 51 seats in the Senate or 54? And that's the margin, really, between it being a moderate success and it being a big success. But I think Trump looks at the Biden presidency, looks at the complete breakdown of law and order in many American cities. Interestingly, particularly the ones where they followed BLM and defunded the police. He looks at the state of the US economy. He looks at all these things. No, Trump is going to run. He will announce this next Tuesday at Mar-a-Lago. And one of the reasons, Dan, that I'm in Arizona is I think Carrie Lake, the former TV show, I think she's going to win the governorship here in Arizona. And I really wouldn't be surprised if next Tuesday she wasn't at Mar-a-Lago too, and wasn't announced as Trump's vice presidential running mate. That is my guess as to what's going to happen.
Wow. I mean, Carrie Lake, Nigel, she is a fascinating character. As you were talking about on your show earlier tonight, a local news anchor. She actually was an Obama supporter. So this is a woman who, like many Americans, has come to Trump quite late in the game. But he gave her his full throttled endorsement, right?
Yes, I met Carrie before she'd even announced she was going to run. And by complete coincidence, I was at Mar-a-Lago the night he endorsed her. So I've been following her progress very, very closely. And I had dinner with her just a couple of months ago when I was last out here in the States. She brings energy. She brings, well, good looks shouldn't matter, but you know what? They do actually make a difference, whatever anybody says. She is very family orientated, very Christian orientated, very traditional. You know, a believer in the Constitution, in what some would believe to be old-fashioned American values. But you know something? You get outside the big cities and you find that's where most Americans are, including a very large chunk of those who normally vote Democrat. So I think she comes into this with no political baggage, tremendous message delivery, courage. No, believe you me, Dan, she is the future of the Republican Party. Of that, I have no doubt at all.
And what I love is she is prepared to take on the MSM, especially the likes of CNN, in shall we say, full-throttled way. Well, you heard it here first. Nigel Farage predicting that Carrie Lake, if she wins tonight, could end up being Donald Trump's running mate, which would be fascinating. But look, Nigel, I hate to do this to you, given you're in the States, but I do want to bring you back to politics back here in the UK, if that's OK with you, because we have had the big breaking news over the last hour that Gavin Williamson has resigned from Rishi Sunak's cabinet. Now, this has obviously been the third time he's been forced out of cabinet. First, it was under Theresa May, then Boris Johnson. Do you think his resignation calls into questions Rishi Sunak's political judgment, or is this just an example of another mainstream media witch hunt?
No, it's an example of the low calibre of people in today's Conservative Party, including those in cabinet. How a creep like that ever even reached cabinet position, how he was ever reappointed. No, I mean it. Have a look at him. Have a look at his speeches. I mean, the guy's a social misfit. I'm sorry, but so many of them are like that. He lost that defence job because it was said that he'd leaked confidential military papers. He is low grade. In the real world, he would have gone precisely nowhere. But sadly, that is what today's careerist Conservative Party is. It's stuffed full of people like that, with the odd honourable exception.
No, and look, I do agree with you on Gavin Williamson. He was a very incompetent education secretary. But I think, Nigel, what is maybe annoying me a little bit, the pearl clutching from certain parts of politics and certain part of the media about what I would describe as the cut and thrust of Westminster. And you know they exchange messages like that between each other all the time, right?
Yeah, look, I get that point, and of course, if you talk even vigorously to a civil servant, they'll accuse you of bullying. I understand that. But you know what? If the phrases attributed to Williamson are correct, it just shows a guy who frankly lacks judgment, at every level. How on earth he's got a knighthood is completely and utterly beyond me. Rather like the resignation honours list where people aged 19 are going to the House of Lords. Sorry, 29, are going to the House of Lords. I mean, it sums the whole thing up. These are the last days of Conservative rule. They don't deserve to be there. They've let the electorate down horribly. And the issue, as I predicted for 2 years, cost them the election, is what is happening in the English Channel, even if the economy improves. And frankly, Dan, when you promise people, vote for us, we will honour the Brexit result and bring back control of Britain's borders, and you haven't even got the guts to send back Albanian criminals, you don't deserve to win the election.
Well, indeed. And Nigel, then you see Meloni in Italy prove that actually if someone has the political will, there are things that can be done. But Sunak lacks the guts to do it, right?
We lack the guts to do it. And of course, because we're part of ECHR, we give our judges every opportunity to stop deportations happening of any kind at all. And it's extraordinary. You go back 10 years, and we were deporting 30 or 40,000 people a year who were in the country illegally or who committed crimes. We're now deporting virtually nobody. That's where we've gone. 12 years of Conservative government. They are now a Social Democrat government. They are left of centre. They are big state. They are high tax. They are open border legal immigration, 1.2 million visas issued last year. They can't control the channel. They are not a Conservative party. Stop deluding yourself, Dan, that they are. They're not. And frankly, the choice between them and Labour, it's almost back to where we were 10 years ago. You know, when we had Cameron, Clegg and Miliband ruling the roost, I used to say you can't put a cigarette paper between them. Then we had Boris and Brexit, and we had Corbyn with a hard left agenda. And at least we had a choice, a political choice, and the country made its choice in 2019, and the silent majority, the common sense majority, spoke and spoke very clearly, giving a big majority. Now, I don't know what the choice is. I really mean that.
No, and I fear you're right about Rishi Sunak, and you know I never wanted to hit the guy anywhere near number 10, and he was installed in what I believe was an anti-democratic coup, which is actually costing the Conservatives thousands and thousands of members. And you may be interested to know, Nigel, we have Richard Tice, the leader of the Reform Party, on later to talk about all of the new members rushing towards them.
And Dan, you know, I am the honorary president of Reform.
I know you are, yes.
I came up with the name. I got it approved by the Electoral Commission. And from what I can see, I spoke to Richard earlier on today, thousands. And the important thing isn't just people joining Reform, but Tory activists are joining Reform.
Yeah, because they're furious.
And that is what you need.
They're furious, and they feel completely let down by the Conservative government. They don't believe that Rishi Sunak should be Prime Minister. But look, Nigel, your show is going to be must-watch tomorrow night with all of the fallout from what could be one hell of a red wave. But have a couple of drinks tonight. It will be a fun one.
Well, I will. And Dan, Carrie Lake has promised to be on the show tomorrow with me. So that should be really
brilliant. Brilliant. That will be must-watch because, as you say, she could be a political superstar. Emerging tonight. We will see Nigel Farage live from Arizona. Thank you so much. But coming up, as the government searches for a solution to the Channel crisis, should camps be established to replace luxury hotels? And will failure to get a grip on the issue sink the Tories at the next election? I'll poll my superstar panel in the Media Buzz at 10 p.m, where we'll have the first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages too. But first, as the Duchess of Sussex suggests, her difficult label is sexist. Will she ever just take responsibility for her actions? Look, it's going to be round 2 of Meghan versus Meghan as one of the top American journalists. Megyn Kelly, who went viral for her scathing takedown of Duchess Difficult, joins me live straight after the break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m, Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Now today, Meghan Markle, the Montecito Mona, has given yet another masterclass in victimisation disguised as a podcast, this time arguing that critics who call her difficult actually want to brand her something else. Listen.
In other words, I think what Robin's getting at, and what these people are implying when they use that very charged word, is that this woman, she's difficult. Which is really just a euphemism, or probably not even a euphemism. It's really a code word for the B word.
No. You were just difficult, Meghan. Very difficult. Someone who's thinking along the same lines, actually, is US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly, who went viral recently after delivering another blistering round of home truths for the Duchess of Woke, calling her out for claiming she had never researched Prince Harry prior to them dating.
For my age, it was JFK Jr. For her age, it was Prince Harry. Let's get real. There's always that eligible bachelor, and the Kennedys back when I was growing up were the closest thing we had to American royalty, even though we don't like royalty here. And so she was a liar. I mean, that's really what we're both saying. She lied about it. And my producer Kelly says, is it just me or is it so annoying how she always refers to him as my husband? It's not just you, Kelly. It is all of us. My husband. We get it. You bagged the gorilla.
Oh, Megyn Kelly, that was you in absolute top form. But what do you make of this today? This new rewriting of history. Anyone who described Meghan Markle as difficult, by the way, Meghan, that was like virtually every single person who worked with her here in the UK, was actually apparently calling her a bitch.
You know what? I wouldn't necessarily call her the B word, but I would definitely call her the C word. Clueless. She's utterly clueless. I am so sick of her tired, off-point, irrelevant musings about her non-problems. Let me give you some perspective, Dan, okay? She lives in the state of California, where they have approximately 160,000 homeless people. They have a homicide rate that has reached an all-time high in the past 15 years. They have fentanyl on nearly every street corner now where children walk, which used to be safe, but thanks to the illegal border crossings has now run rampant in her state. On a countrywide basis, we have people who cannot afford Thanksgiving turkeys. The cost of them has gone so high. They can't pay their gas and electric bills. They cannot buy gas. They cannot buy food the way they used to at the grocery store. And we are supposed to give a damn whether somebody's calling her the B word or difficult, and we don't. She doesn't get it. No one gives a damn about these non-problems. She should stop complaining and start showing some gratitude for what appears to be a very beautiful life about which she finds nothing to celebrate.
You're so right. You're so right. But what's most fascinating about it, Megyn, is this is someone who purports to be a humanitarian, someone who actually, and I know you think it's far-fetched, but genuinely believes that one day she will run for the Democratic nomination to be the president of the United States. But she doesn't talk about those issues that you point out are going on in California. She talks all about the problems of a multi-million-pound celebrity.
About herself. That's what drives me nuts about this woman.
Thing she cares about.
That's it. She does have a big platform, and she could use it to shine a light on some of these problems. She won't do it because she's working out her own personal issues in a therapy session every week. They're all about her. The word diva, the word the B word, all the things that have been said about her, a tiger lady, the angry black woman, every single stereotype that she allegedly falls into, how aggression is bad. These are all the things that she thinks people think of her, and she's trying to go on a self-rehabilitation tour without realizing we don't care. Shut up. Stop talking about yourself. Show some some humility and some gratitude. She is living in a mansion in Montecito. She married a prince. She's a beautiful woman. She appears to have had very loving parents who paid for her education, something she publicly denies in a lie. Her father, as you know, is on record that he paid for her college, but now she runs around trying to tell people she did it herself. Absolutely no gratitude, just complaints. All she wants to do is look at those people who can't pay their groceries and say, stop using the B word and stop saying difficult about women and don't call women aggressive and don't call them bimbos. And well, shut up. We don't listen to you and you haven't earned the right to make us listen to you. She says her friend says to her, well, you can't make everyone like you, but you can make people respect you. Well, have at it. Let's see something that might earn some of our respect. Why do you think we like Kate? Why do we like Will? Why did we like the Queen and not you? Because they worked for it. They got out there. They did the ribbon cuttings. They volunteered at homeless shelters and other places like that where she wouldn't deign to spend her time. We don't respect somebody who's been given enormous privilege time after time, only to complain about it, to backstab the people who gave her the opportunities, and then to hurt the little people who work for her. Character, one of the defining characteristics that shows you what someone's character is how they treat people who can do nothing for them. And that is why the palace bullying scandal actually does matter. And we are entitled to call her difficult or the B word or whatever the hell we want.
Well, yes, indeed. And I think actually, Meghan, the reason why your podcast, which was brilliant, went viral last week was because finally someone is calling her out for lying, because I'm sick of beating around the bush about the fact that Meghan Markle is a provable liar. We can prove it. So we shouldn't have to believe what she tells us in this podcast, given how many lies, and I will use that word again, she has told in the past.
Oh, my God. I mean, I've called her the Duchess of Duplicity. She, in like this podcast, wants us to believe that when she hears the B word, she breaks out in hives. No, she doesn't. That's a lie, too. There's like a lie a minute, Dan. Let me see. Let's try it. Let's do it live on the air. Show me. Okay, let's see it. It'll be a little experiment.
Where are your hives, Meghan? No, it's completely right. And I think that's the point. We are so used to all of these lies coming each week, but it is a case of diminishing returns now, isn't it? Because actually, who's listening to this podcast now? I forced myself, right, the first couple of weeks. I felt like it was important for me to listen to the whole thing, to understand it in context. No, I can't be bothered anymore. So actually, the world is switching off this podcast, and I think very soon Spotify is probably going to regret its massive investment.
It is the ultimate insult in woke ideology. Every week, a new lecture about a word she finds problematic that we are not allowed to use. Coincidentally, they all happen to be about her and have made her feel victimized in her Montecito mansion, which she finds totally unsuitable now because the $14 million property that Harry saw with the intertwining palm trees and said, my love, they're us, is now disgusting to them, right? That's another on her long list of problems. Yep. I agree with you. No sane person would be listening to this. This is only a media venture. And I think this will be season 1 and done of her Spotify podcast.
Yes. Very much unlike your podcast, Megyn Kelly, which I'm addicted to, The Megyn Kelly Show, available on Sirius XM in the US as well as on YouTube, or as I download a podcast for international fans. Megyn, thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Breaking tonight, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been rocked by the departure of Sir Gavin Williamson following allegations of bullying. But has the usual cut and thrust of Westminster been overblown by the MSM and the Blob in a bid to claim another ministerial scalp? I'll get the reactions of my superstar panel, Amanda Blattal, Reverend Calvin Robinson and Rebecca Reed next. With the cost of housing illegal migrants ringing in at an astonishing £7 million per day, should camps be established to replace luxury hotels? That's what ministers want. And if they don't do something drastic soon, could the Channel crisis actually cost the Tories the next election? We'll debate that very shortly. Thousands of Tory members deserting the party after the anti-democratic coronation of Sunak over Boris. Well, Reform UK leader Richard Tice predicts a political revolution is looming. He's going to be live with me in the studio continue at 10:20. As the absurdity of the intolerant left's proposed COVID amnesty is laid bare,
it turns out that this was all a lie. Yep. I was really just kind of hoping we could put all this behind us and move on. Is that an apology? Because it doesn't really sound like one.
do lockdown fanatics deserve forgiveness for their witch hunt against vaccine skeptics? Broadcaster and campaigner for bodily autonomy Tonya Buxton uncancelled on that at 10:40. Plus, as she's accused of attending COP27 despite having no reason to be there, is Nicola Sturgeon only interested in becoming the Queen of Egypt? That and more in the Media Buzz coming up. We'll have tomorrow's first newspaper front pages too, and Greatest Britain Union jackass before the night is out. But first, the news headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dan. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Sir Gavin Williamson has resigned from the Cabinet following new allegations about his conduct. In his resignation letter, Sir Gavin said the claims were becoming a distraction to the good work of the government. It comes after Deputy Chief Whip Anne Milton claimed he tried to use an MP's financial difficulties as leverage. Sir Gavin has denied bullying and says he refutes the characterisation of these fresh allegations. Our political reporter, Olivia Utley, has more on the potential fallout.
This afternoon, he was still denying those allegations, and Rishi Sunak's government were unwilling to throw their full support behind him. This evening, he has finally decided to take the hit and step down. But the questions now are circulating about Rishi Sunak's judgment. Was the new Prime Minister right to hire the former Chief Whip in the first place? And if not, then can his judgment be 100% trusted? The problem with Rishi Sunak is always that he has been a pretty inexperienced Prime Minister at a very important moment. And can he live up to what's expected of him?
Well, Thangam Debonair is shadow leader of the House of Commons. She says this isn't the first time that Rishi Sunak has shown poor judgment.
We've seen more than one person make allegations about him in the last, 24 hours. They've been serious allegations, and I think it's important that we just focus on the fact that it was Rishi Sunak who, despite the fact that he knew about these allegations, decided to appoint him anyway. Now, as I said, it's a pattern of behaviour because he also appointed Suella Braverman just the previous week, only 6 days after she herself resigned for breaking the ministerial code by her own admission about national security. This is a pattern of behaviour from a weak Prime Minister. It's not what we need in a Prime Minister at a time of national crisis.
And in other news, the RMT union says strikes on London's underground service will now go ahead. It's after last-minute talks failed to resolve a dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. Union officials say Transport for London has refused its offer to suspend strike action in exchange for a pause to job cuts. And in international news, Donald Trump has cast his vote in Florida as Americans across the country headed to the polls in those midterm elections. The former US president left the polling station accompanied by his wife Melania and the cheers of supporters. Currently, the Democrats control both the House of Representatives and the Senate. President Biden is warning that a Republican victory could weaken the country's democracy. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Dan. Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. So I've just been handed the first front pages. Let's get straight to them. He's in and he's out. That's the headline on the Metro, referring to the fact that Matt Hancock will enter the Australian jungle for I'm a Celebrity tomorrow as Gavin Williamson resigns from the government tonight. The Eye also leads on Williamson's resignation following bullying claims, and UK intelligence officials reportedly accusing him of becoming a risk to national security following his alleged leak of highly sensitive information as Defence Secretary in 2019. Well, we knew that, didn't we? We knew that. Your three
300,000 voices have been heard, declares the Express, as Sunak is expected to stick by the Tory pledge to inflation-proof state pension rises in next week's budget. And, of course, the Express has been campaigning on that. My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator and host here at GB News, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, said yesterday the government aims to stop putting illegal migrants up in luxury hotels, moving them as quickly as possible to other forms of accommodation. Currently, we pay an eye-watering £6.8 million a day housing arrivals, with many in high-end hotels like the four-star Great Allenbury Manor in Essex. In its place, the introduction of more processing centres like the one in Manston or establishing asylum camps would be sure to bring the bill down. But they'll need to act quickly, because new polling from The Times has revealed that the Tories risk losing the next election solely due to their failure to tackle the small boats crisis. The paper found that the high number of migrants crossing the Channel is the top reason why almost half of those who voted Tory at the last election plan to switch to another party when they vote. So, look, Amanda Patel, action has to be taken. It is completely unfeasible to keep spending £7 million a day to put largely illegal migrant arrivals in 4- or 5-star hotels. Why can't they construct camps?
I did some maths on this,
Oh, that
Dan. I
scares
know
me.
you always like it when I do a bit of maths.
OK, go on.
OK.
Am I going to have to get the calculator out?
6.9 million a day is 7 million a day.
Yeah.
7 sevens are 49. Is that right?
Yeah.
7 sevens are 49 per week. Then that means that per month, so it means it's 50 million per week we're spending, 200 million per month. And I know I'm segueing a little bit away from what you want to talk about, but, you know, this kind of deal that Sunak's supposed to have done with Macron, they're basically, what they've said is they're giving them 180 million quid. That's less than we spend in a month on these places. Why can't we build Nightingale, let's call them reception centres or holding centres, or whatever's politically correct to call it?
Because there's an issue, apparently, with using the word camps.
But look, there's no issue whatsoever.
It doesn't have a great connotation, does it?
We built 7 hospitals during COVID, and they were fitted with the most sophisticated medical equipment to treat people who, not with the incubators, but with every other form of COVID. We did it then. Why can't we do it now? Why can't we make, you know, nice holiday homes, if you want to call them that, Rebecca? Nice little...
Would that appease
we could
you,
call them...
I don't want
Should
to
we
call
call them
holiday
Butlins?
home.
Butlins camps. Oh, I got the camps word again.
Nobody
That's
should
not
be sent
good.
to Butlins, whatever happens.
Butlins is
Human
amazing.
rights still exist. No one should have to go and see a cabaret in the evening.
Oh,
But this whole notion that we're giving over 180 million quid now, which is tiny in our spend, and what have we got? A few border guards. Probably can't call them guards anymore, can we? Border people. Who are going over, and they're not even allowed to have any authority in the French camps. What are they going to do? Say, OK, oh, sir, would you prefer a 4-star hotel in Dover or a 5-star one in, in Buckinghamshire? And while we're at it, can I just check, because you don't like the food we're providing, can we just check if you've got any nut allergies or if you're gluten intolerant, so we can make sure that we've got it all ready for when you get there? The whole thing is a total nonsense, and the Tories are going to sink over this policy.
Rebecca Reid, I mean, I've been calling this a national emergency now on this show for well over a year. You still seem to be completely chill about this.
Yeah.
So in that case, are you happy to have these illegal migrants living next door, or are you going to take some in? Because I don't know where we're going to put them, Rebecca.
I don't think I would take anybody in, because I have a 2-bedroom place for me and my daughter. So I think it'd be a bit weird to have her bunking in with a 25-year-old Albanian man.
She could bunk in with you?
Well, he could bunk in with me if he's hot. Sorry.
You're not allowed to say that. That is so sexist.
I sense this isn't
the left is so sexist.
I sense this isn't the moment for levity.
It's outrageous. That's
human trafficking. I mean, this is a national emergency.
I'm not.
You just seem to be dismissing this.
Super don't care. My life has in no way changed or been any way different as a result of this so-called crisis. And I find it very hard to get upset about things that don't impact me.
Well, you say that, But I presume you care about the safety of your daughter. So how do you feel about the fact that a huge number of these illegal migrants arriving from Albania are literally being trafficked to join prostitution gangs, drug rings, and potentially terrorism too? Like, are you just going to dismiss the huge crime consequences that come with this invasion?
I mean, if that is true and that's what happens,
well,
then
it is
that is concerning. But I don't know that I've seen the evidence to believe that that is what...
Well, there is evidence, literally this week, from Dan O'Mahony, who is the bloke responsible for trying to stop this in the Select Committee.
I don't think that the problem is as significant as people are acting like it is. I don't think the numbers are overwhelming the world. Italy took in 41,000 people in the same period that we did, and they don't seem to be up in arms about it. They're not suggesting their services over.
Well, no, the new Prime Minister is now going to keep all of the male economic migrants on boats.
Yeah, and not letting men in is always my favourite thing. But I think, broadly speaking, it seems
So you
like
don't concede at all that there is any form of emergency about the fact that we're going to have 50,000 people crossing the channel?
Rebecca, what about the total cost? If you think, you've got a child who's going to be educated in this country, and,
you might need to be
1.3 billion pounds a year isn't the figure, the cost of immigration to this country.
Maybe
doesn't that, when your schools, when the teaching assistants are being cut and when the classes are getting bigger and bigger, won't that affect you?
Do you know what? I think what this is about is that I'm of a specific age group who've lived under a very long Tory government and a very long, let's say half my life's been Labour, half my life's been Tory. Nothing's been different. There's never been enough money for anything. No one's ever done anything interesting. It's always been, there's too many people coming in, we don't have enough money. I've never seen getting cross about these things change anything. People said Brexit was going to change immigration. It clearly hasn't, because we're still having the same conversation.
No, because we haven't taken back control.
I feel deeply apathetic about any of this, because I don't think anything will make a difference. I don't think anything's going to change.
But you're not prepared to say that there's a national emergency?
No, it just doesn't feel very... There's been a national emergency of some ilk my entire life, and everyone just gets up and gets on with their life, so I can't get it up to care.
Calvin, we have never had this sort of illegal invasion across the channel.
No.
I mean, this is a completely unprecedented issue. It's getting worse, Calvin. Yep. And if we continue our soft touch approach, I mean, so I reckon we'll have 50,000 to 60,000 by the end of this year. So next year, the criminal gangs, the human trafficking gangs will be emboldened, and we're looking at 100,000.
It's a massive emergency, you're absolutely right. British workers are being undercut in prices. We've got our public sector's infrastructure being squeezed, from hospitals to schools, etc. But worse than that, last week, The Telegraph put out an article that said 50% of these so-called asylum seekers are illegitimate, as in they are not real asylum claimers. We've got people smugglers, we've got human trafficking, we've got prostitution, all the things you've mentioned, which are being encouraged by this act of illegal immigrants coming over the border. We've got crime rates going up in areas like Kent, where they're landing. We've got actual rape going on and horrible crimes being committed. We've got terrorists coming over. This is the biggest emergency we've seen in decades. It's going to be the number one issue in the next election. And if the Tories don't fix it, they will lose the election.
How do you fix it? And I'm genuinely asking. But how do you fix it without...
OK, how do you fix it? What you do is look at...
You like the Italian approach, don't you, Cal?
I like the Australian
Just
approach. Just get a big ship, so don't let people land on British soil first and foremost, so you're in international waters.
Like an Ellis Island model.
Yep, and then you can process them on the ship, and send them back. If they come from a safe country like France, send them back to France.
Well, Accession Island
But why is it France's
suggested as well?
responsibility?
Because that's where they're coming from.
But they weren't. They were somewhere else before France.
Then France should have dealt with them in the first place.
I feel like
And we
that's
should
a bit
have
mean.
we should have gunships in the water.
Not the gunboats.
The Australian model is that you don't allow people to land on your shore, and they're kept in very lovely...
I had Alexander Downer, the former Australian Foreign Minister, here last night, and the point is, Rebecca, it's actually the humane way to solve this crisis, because you know what
send them back to their homes.
Well, of course, but you know what happened within 2 years in Australia? Because the people who were paying the human trafficking gangs realised we're never going to set foot in Australia.
Yeah.
We're going to be stuck on the island of Nauru for years and years and years. It completely smashed the bottle,
But
and the
why-
boat arrivals went from 24,000 to zero within 2 years. We have to smash the
I
model,
understand
and we
that, and I
smashed the
think-
model by letting these people know you're not going to get in. And unfortunately, it's being cruel to be kind. because
I
we
understand
cannot
what you're saying,
encourage these
and
people to
I don't
smuggling
have any
gangs.
issue. As I say, I'm apathetic about this because I don't think anything ever changes. But I understand if it's important to you, a clean, well-managed centre with no scabies where people are processed seems the best option. What I don't understand is the French offered to co-found one with us, and we said no. Why?
Yes, because you don't understand what the
No,
French
I'm
are trying
genuinely
to do.
asking.
The French want as many of these folk as possible to come to the UK because they don't want it to be their
And we
problem.
want as many as possible of them to stay in
Because
France,
they're
so
already
we're
there.
the same.
Well, no, because they're already in France.
That's the same
So you don't think it's the French responsibility to stop these folk risking their lives
Why is it
and
the
going
French's
in small
responsibility?
boats across the channel?
The government's number one
responsible for
job
it?
is to protect the borders, to protect the people of the nation. So
That's what the French are trying to do.
France isn't protecting their borders. They're already in France, as you said.
They're protecting them by
So
saying
we-
go to
we
England.
have to protect our borders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not
But
protecting them
wouldn't
because it's encouraging people smuggling gangs to drive people to make a perilous crossing across the channel, which, number one, any humanitarian should be saying is completely wrong. Plus, actually, it's not the right thing to do.
But if they
it's
were
morally
here-
wrong. And Macron wants this problem to go away, and that's why I think Sunak's so ridiculous for his faith in Macron. But look, now those middle-class eco-terrorists, another thing just to get me mad, Just Stop Oil, continued their campaign of terror this morning as they blocked the M25 for a second straight day. Hard-working Brits around Essex, Surrey and Kent were brought to a standstill once again with 16 protesters arrested. And it seems like the criminal mob's latest tactic is to burst our eardrums into submission. Look.
Hello, my name is Louise. I'm 24 years old and I'm here on a gantry and I'm terrified because I don't have a future. The time for words is over. And you might hate me for doing this and you're entitled to hate me. And I can't stand by and let it happen. Why does it take young people like me up on a gantry on the M25 for you to listen?
I mean, shout as loud as you want, but I'm not subscribing.
Cambridge educated, drives a Clio petrol car, and her dad's got a huge diesel guzzler in the front drive.
What her dad
You know?
does is not relevant to who
She
is.
drives a
That
petrol
is not-
car.
That's. I'm sorry, I think they're incredibly brave, and I think it's very nice that they care as much as they do. I don't care about anything that
They've been
much. I think it's
radicalised.
lovely that they do.
You think eco-terrorism
I think
is
they're
brave?
incredibly brave. I don't have that kind of compunction for anything in my life.
They're just
Apart from Taylor
insane.
Swift.
They've been groomed. They've been radicalised to an extremist.
Is it religion the same?
by the way-
Two of us have been groomed in some way.
Yeah, to them. They need to not even stop on the way to prison. That's what I say about Just Stop Oil. Sorry, that didn't quite work, did it? Coming up, after Sir Gavin Williamson resigns following bullying allegations, has the usual cut and thrust of Westminster been overblown by the MSM and the Blob in a plot to claim another ministerial scout? My Superstar panel return to break tonight's breaking news in just a moment. But first, thousands of Tory members deserting the party after the anti-democratic coronation of Sunak over Johnson. Well, Reform UK leader Richard Tice is here next on the political revolution he thinks is imminent.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, thousands of Conservative members have reportedly quit the party in protest at the anti-democratic decision to install Rishi Sunak as PM over Boris Johnson. The Reform UK party, formerly known as the Brexit Party and led by Nigel Farage, but helmed by successful businessman Richard Tice under its new name since March 2021, they've said that 4,534 new members have joined their party since this trust stood down a fortnight ago. Now, analysts claim potentially over 10,000 might have quit the Tories. But with Reform UK still languishing around 5% in the polls, do they have a genuine chance of unseating the Tories, or is a vote for them simply a vote for slippery Starmer? Well, Reform UK leader Richard Tice joins me now live in the studio. And Richard, I have been one of the only people talking about how deeply damaging what happened in the transition between Truss to Sunak was for the Conservative Party. What the Conservative MPs basically said is, we don't give a damn about our members. We are going to purposefully cut them out of the process. And I am very in touch with the Conservative grassroots, and I actually absolutely believe your figures. I know how disillusioned folk in the Conservative Party are.
And let's be clear, Dan, actually, the word's not languishing, the word is growing, because in truth, we're going, it depends on which polls you're at, but on some we're 6. In the north, we're way more than that, and it's changing. And what's happened is, not only were people just appalled at the removal of Liz Truss and the coronation and what's happened, the anti-democratic nature, but all final hope that any Conservative person may have that you have a party that represents high growth, low taxes, small state. It's all gone. It's finished. It's gone. It's over.
It's now led by the globalists.
No, let's be clear. You've got two forms of socialism in this country. You've got con-socialism, led by Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, and you've got red socialism, led by Keir Starmer. And then you've got Reform UK. We stand for high growth, low taxes, cutting the size of the state, cutting out wasteful government spending. And that's absolutely... We're the only party that recognises that we all care about the environment, but Westminster's net zero is the wrong way to go about protecting and arriving with getting clean air. And essentially, their net zero is making the country net poorer. You're seeing it this week with claims for reparations and all this nonsense. So net zero is making the country net poorer. We're the only party that will stand up and tell the truth about that. And we're the only party that will stand up and say, we will stop the boats.
Yeah, and I hear that, and I understand why a lot of disillusioned Conservative members have joined Reform UK. I completely get that. What I don't understand, though, is how your pitch can be anything other than saying that a vote for Reform UK is a vote for a Labour government, because in reality,
let's be very clear.
Risk granting Labour huge swaths of seats.
Dan, I'm saying to people, vote for what you believe in, not what you're afraid of, and the objective that we will achieve, I believe, within 3 years of now, is proportional representation. And that is an absolute...
Labour won't want that if they get it.
They voted for it in their conference. The only person who doesn't want it at the moment is Starmer. But if they win, I dispute that. If they win with either a small majority or with a coalition with the Lib Dems, it's nailed on. And it's the right thing for the country.
I agree with that.
It's the right thing for the country because there's no such thing as a wasted vote.
Surges, though, if Reform UK surges, and there's a chance of that, and of course we have to wait and see.
And we're taking votes from
what
Labour.
my colleague Nigel Farage does as well, and whether he's going to be campaigning for you on the front line. So there is a chance that you surge. But just like at previous elections, there's a big moral dilemma for you, isn't there?
Dan, there's no moral dilemma at all.
Because there is a chance that you surging results in a Labour landslide, and then proportional representation doesn't happen.
No, nonsense. Look, let's be clear. The Tories have been in charge for 12 years. They've broken this country. They've ruined it. We are on the edge of being so far gone, it's not recoverable. It's like the late 1970s. They believe in managed decline. I believe in this country. We can make this country great again, but it requires radical change. It requires reform. And, sometimes you have to do tough, difficult things. But I believe in the north of England, for example, people understand the greatest asset we have in this country is the cheap energy treasure under our feet, whether it's lithium, whether it's gas, whether it's oil, whether it's coal. We should be using all of it because that makes us competitive, it makes us grow, and that is really, really important. We can still reduce emissions.
Yeah.
And people in the north understand that. And people in the north are fuming, absolutely fuming about what's going on.
I think
and they want
what you'll probably be pleased to hear from with me is that I am increasingly coming around for the need for electoral reform in the UK. Because I think the Conservative Party and the Labour Party for far too long have pushed a message that it means coalition of chaos. But what we're actually seeing is these big tent parties who have a left wing and a right wing within them who can't get anything done. And in fact, what you would see, because this is what happened in my home country of New Zealand when they had a proportional system introduced in the 90s, is you have some centre-left governments, some centre-right governments, where a party like yours could actually have a real impact on what the...
We could have a massive impact. You've seen it in Italy. Giorgia Meloni, in 18, she got 4%, and now she got in the high 20s. And competition's good. People want new people with new parties, with new ideas, who can actually change things, get things done.
One issue you've got, though, is there are a number of small parties. You're not the only one. And lots of people are aware of UKIP, of course, because that was the Farage party before he set up the Brexit party. There's the SDP, Social Democrat Party, which Rod Liddle, who's a regular on this show, is a member of and is incredibly passionate about. Lawrence Fox, who's obviously a presenter here on GB News, he has his Reclaim party. And lots of members of those parties are saying, why don't you sit down with them and actually get all of yourselves together to form some sort of coalition who could genuinely take on the Tories?
As I think you know, we've recently announced a working arrangement with the SDP, and we will jointly endorse and indeed have some joint candidates.
Yes, but you don't want to sit down with the SDP.
Look, the reality is there's only one of the smaller parties that's making any progress in the polls, and that's Reform UK. and we're now ahead of the Greens comfortably. We're making progress. Look, no one's saying it's easy. This stuff is difficult. It takes a lot of hard work. Building a brand in any walk of life takes time, but we're making progress. People realise that we've got the courage to stand up for the important issues about energy, the madness of net zero, about stopping the boats, about growing the economy. We're the only party to talk about growing the economy anymore. The Tories have given up. Yeah. Labour don't understand the word growth. And it's incredibly important to save this country.
OK. Richard Tice, leader of Reform UK, thank you so much for being here tonight. But coming up, as they call for a COVID amnesty, do pro-lockdown fanatics deserve forgiveness for their witch hunt against vaccine sceptics? Well, broadcaster and campaigner for bodily autonomy, Tonya Buxton, she's on Council with us at 10:40. But next, after Gavin Williamson resigns following bullying allegations, has the usual cut and thrust of Westminster been overblown by the MSM and the Blob in a plot to claim another ministerial scalp? That debate, tomorrow's newspapers and more, up next in the Media Buzz.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Now let's return to tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz.
Lots more front pages just in. The Guardian headline quotes Williamson's former Deputy Chief Whip, who accused him of unethical and immoral behaviour, and also that he instilled a culture of fear in Westminster. Mail also leads on Williamson's exit from the Cabinet after the former Chief Whip allegedly said to a colleague, "Cut your throat." Plus, and oh my goodness, I mean, I think this would be the end for Rishi Sunak, actually, saying he could bring back the 50p top tax rate just 2 months after it was cut to 40p by Kwasi Kwarteng. I mean, honestly, it was Gordon Brown who put the top tax rate up to 50p. Remember, Tony Blair had always believed it should only be 40p. That would be the end for the Conservative Party. So that's going to be a big story tomorrow. Do you think?
They chuck stuff out like that to enrage people and then pull back from it.
I hope so.
You know, and then that I do not believe that.
I hope so. That's Amanda Patel.
You remember
Daily
my
Mail
name.
columnist.
That's good.
Calvin Robinson and Rebecca
Yay.
Reid here with
Also
me too.
here.
The Independent also leading with Sir Gavin Williamson's resignation after facing bullying allegations. Rumble in the Jungle, headline in the Daily Mirror, as MP Matt Hancock set to enter I'm a Celebrity. Fears of a Clown is the Star's front page ahead of Hancock's entrance to the I'm a Celeb camp. The lockdown health minister says he's expecting to face every trial, and, you know, he deserves to, doesn't he? So, my superstar panel back with me now, and we're going to go to that breaking news tonight. Under fire, Government Minister Sir Gavin Williamson has resigned amid his ongoing bullying scandal. He was accused of telling a colleague to slit their throat and jump out of a window when he was Defence Secretary between 2017 and 2019. He was the government's chief whip at the time. The claims followed a series of expletive-laden texts exposed over the weekend that dragged the Cabinet Office Minister into further furore. He was accused of separately bullying Chief Whip Wendy Morton while complaining that he wasn't invited to the Queen's funeral. Accusing her of rigging ticket allocations, Williamson told her, "Let's see how many more times you F us all over. There is a price for everything." But in a resignation letter to Sunak tonight, Williamson said, "I refute the characterisation of these claims, but I recognise they are becoming a distraction for the good work this government is doing for the British people. I have therefore decided to step back from government so that I can comply fully with the complaints process that is underway and clear my name of wrongdoing." And in further allegations just hours ago, former Deputy Chief Whip Anne Milton went public with her own bullying complaints against her former colleague.
Come into the office and say, guess who enjoys, some form of sex or another, I found very distasteful apart from anything. He also, on one occasion, we had an MP who got a few financial problems. Some financial help was given. It wasn't a great amount, but I do remember him asking me to give the MP in question the cheque, and he waved it under my nose and said, "Make sure when you give him this cheque, he knows that I now own him."
Now look, Williamson, clearly not a nice bloke, right? I understand that. But find me a Machiavellian chief whip who is. This is the cut and thrust of Westminster. I'm not defending it, but what's clear to me here is that the MSM and Westminster Blob believe they are now in a position to force out any cabinet minister they like. The idea that some text messages he sent years ago is the biggest story in the country right now is wrong. And Calvin Robinson, that is my concern here. The MSM, they've got the scalp of Williamson now. Well, you know who they're coming for next? They're coming for Braverman. Just like they came for Kwarteng, just like they came for Truss, just like they came for Boris Johnson. And this is not anything new. These are all text messages sent years ago. And I just... Look, I repeat, I'm no fan of Williamson, but I do not like the way that the media just conducts witch hunts now and the government gives in. Who's running this country?
Indeed, who's in charge? Who's in power? It doesn't seem like it's Rishi Sunak. It seems like it's someone above him. It seems like the MSM are in charge. I think Williamson should have gone for the whole algorithm scandal for, when Ofqual said, do not cancel school exams, and he cancelled school exams. When he closed
he was disastrous.
schools, when he
Disastrous
had a U-turn on the algorithm. Terrible, terrible minister.
Yeah.
But for sending nasty texts to his colleagues, I'm not sure. And I cannot stand when WhatsApp messages are leaked to the press either.
It's terrible.
It's terrible because
how do we have any trust? And even politicians should have faith that they can conduct business on WhatsApp. I mean, Rebecca Reid, I have to say, there's lots of pearl clutching going on over this.
Sorry, this is a workplace like any other. If I was sending a message to Calvin telling him to slit his throat and jump off a roof, I would expect you not to invite me back next week. Why on earth shouldn't they have to behave appropriately? I'm sorry, you do not deserve the privacy when you are paid by the taxpayer from the taxpayer. The mainstream media, their job, our job, because, I'm sorry, we are on the telly, is to hold people to account. This is very poor behaviour.
Do you think this is the most important issue in the country right now? Because if you've watched Sky News or BBC News or Channel 4 News, but it hasn't been today. It's been all week.
It's relevant.
This is the most important story.
It's relevant because because the complaint was renewed, or because new stuff came out about the complaint.
No, because he got into a position of power, and all of a sudden, lots of his enemies conspiring with the MSM want to bring him down.
Somebody would be your enemy if they were bullying you and saying things like, I own him. Also, my other issue is that he's clearly not very clever, because anybody who went to girls' school knows you never write things down. You slag people off behind their backs, not in writing.
But Amanda Patel, you're a former Tory advisor. You obviously worked for William Hague when he was leader. Do you think there's anything particularly unusual in these text messages?
People who've not worked in politics have no understanding of what it's like. I mean, you are literally working here. They think that you're all lazy people and you work 24/7. You work in a cesspit in ghastly conditions. Half the people are briefing against you the whole time. I've never known such disloyalty and such viciousness. And you lose your rag, I'm afraid. I mean, I'm quite an even-tempered person, but I'm sure that there was more than one occasion when I told someone to jump out the window, but not before I jumped first. Because you just get so frustrated. And what I hate is that I just don't think, I do not understand, having worked in newspapers, which are also very high pressure, worked in politics, which is much, much worse. I just hate to see these expressions of suddenly bullying. You look sideways at some girl and she starts crying, or some bloke and he starts crying, and suddenly you're the office bully when actually you're just saying, God, I'm going to sound like Meghan Markle here. Oh, Jesus. Actually, I expect a certain standard of work from you.
Yeah.
And I expect you to be here at 11 o'clock. And I expect you to
But that's not what he was doing.
No,
he wasn't saying, please turn up on time for work.
I do not believe for one second that he told someone to go and slit their throat. I just think it's the most ludicrous thing that anyone would say.
But that does very much seem to be what he did
someone
say.
said he said it does not mean it's true.
I think
individual people have made a bullying complaint.
I think he probably did say it, but
I've never had a single complaint of bullying against me. Have you? Have you?
Nor have I.
Okay, so then generally speaking, it's possible not to.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of messages in a very tough job as Chief Whip. Again, I'm not defending it.
Sounds like you are.
Well, no. What I'm very concerned about is the fact that the media in this country now is so powerful, they can raise historic complaints, quote unquote.
And what they're trying to do is they're trying to damage Rishi in this. They're trying to attack him right at this most crucial time. And I'm just
sorry. Why didn't they report it at the time, Rebecca?
They did. They absolutely did.
Not these new allegations they didn't.
Yes, they did. All of this stuff, they absolutely
say
have.
that they reported them all.
Do you not understand what's going on here? Gavin Williamson's political enemies have taken a whole load of text messages that he sent in the past, either years ago or months ago, and because he's now in the cabinet, they want to make those messages public in order for Gavin Williamson to lose his job.
They're trying to damage Rishi. That's what they're trying to do. This is just the usual way that they maneuver things.
Fundamentally untrue. There is
and honestly, if you don't think you can have someone say something like, I feel like jumping out the window, I feel like you throwing out the window, and not
I
saying,
want to jump out the window,
and not thinking that is just, what the
I think you're being naive about the cuss and thrust.
I'm not being that. I've watched in newsrooms, I've seen how people behave. The only thing that I've learned from this is that we need to attract a better quality of MP by paying them better, having people who have better moral standings, people who do not bully people at work. I'm sorry, there is no workplace in this world where it is acceptable to tell people to kill themselves.
But it depends on what you call bullying, what someone else calls bullying.
Telling someone to kill themselves is bullying.
Oh, look, do you really believe he
said
go and slit your throat?
I do.
And then jump out the window. Do you slit your throat while you're going down or when you get down to the ground? It's ludicrous.
We've got no reason to believe he didn't say it.
I have every reason to believe he didn't say it.
What reason?
Some things one can't divulge.
OK. Interesting. Intriguing. Now, Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of rank hypocrisy for jetting out to the COP27 Climate Fest in Egypt just days after her Scottish government slashed its energy efficiency budget by £133 million. Now, this is while proudly announcing that she will hand over £5 million in taxpayer money to poor nations to compensate for, quote, loss and damage caused by climate change. Now, given she's not got a seat on the top table. Critics might argue that in pushing the outlandish reparations scheme, all Sturge wants is attention. In fact, Liam Kerr, Shadow Net Zero Secretary for the Scottish Conservatives, argued that the First Minister has, quote, no real reason to go to the summit. If Sturge wants to be Queen of Egypt, though, a handful of internet creative types have made her dream come true, transforming her into none other than Cleopatra in a jibe at her sickening sense of self-importance. Amanda Patel, Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reid, do stand by because coming up it's the crowning moment of the show as my panel nominate for tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. But first, do lockdown fanatics deserve forgiveness for their witch hunt against vaccine skeptics? Broadcaster and commentator Tonya Buxton says not without an apology. She's uncancelled after we take a very quick look at what's coming up in tomorrow's show. Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, how can hypocrite Harry stay quiet as Netflix screens lurid details of Diana's pain in The Crown? Daily Telegraph columnist Celia Walden weighs in. As the midterm votes are counted, will Trump be the next US president? I grill his ex-advisors. Plus, we explore the real world with tough-talking MP Lee Anderson, and there's opinion galore from my superstar panel, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, despite blowing up our economy, sacrificing our children's futures and demonising the unvaccinated for exercising bodily autonomy, authoritarian COVID zealots want us all to forgive and forget their destructive determination to lock us down. In a widely shared article for Atlantic magazine, lefty US University lecturer Emily Oster called for a, quote, pandemic amnesty where we can forgive one another for what we did and said when we were in the dark about COVID. Now, I have to say, this viral sketch perfectly sums up the gross hypocrisy of that, I think, insulting suggestion. Watch.
Yeah, it turns out that this was all a lie. Yep. I was really just kind of hoping we could put all this behind us and move on. Is that an apology? Because it doesn't really sound like one. I know that I called you a grandma killer, but I really just wanted what was best for you. I actually couldn't visit my grandma in the hospital or even attend her funeral. Let's just call a truce, okay? But according to your hat, you care about social justice. What does that have to do with anything? Why don't you care about justice here? I don't hear you demanding apologies or reparations, because that would have to come from me and...
Like that. Now, I'm joined live now by Tonya Buxton, whose fight for freedom during the pandemic came at great personal cost. So, Tonya, do you believe they deserve this amnesty?
Well, you know, I really would like to forgive them all and just move on. But unfortunately, if this had been a bygone time, I would have been burnt at the stake. So I just don't feel I can do that. I find it astounding that all these people that were completely vile, completely vile, name-calling and caused such harms to our children, to our society, to our economy, now want us to just all forget it and just move on. I don't understand where it's coming from. And what I don't understand is that they have no humility. There's no humility in saying, all right, we got it wrong. We apologise. Then maybe we can think about having an amnesty. But till they apologise, how can we even think about that? When we think about what's going on with the care home workers, that they still haven't got their jobs back, they need to be apologised to, they need to be recompensed and they need to be reinstated. When that happens, then maybe we can think about an amnesty. But whilst this is going on, and they're taking absolutely no responsibility for what they've done, and I lost work, but I lost my mother-in-law. I lost my mother-in-law in lockdown, and that was because of lockdown. It wasn't because of COVID, it was because her lazy, horrid GP couldn't be bothered to see her, and even though we phoned again and again, we turned up at A&Es and got sent home, the cancer had riddled her body and it was far too late, and she died because of lockdown. So you want me to forgive that? I think it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the point is, all of these folk who are now asking for an amnesty, it wasn't as if they didn't have the information available to them. The exact same information was available to them as it was to us. They wanted to buy into the propaganda, and then they used that propaganda to demonise folk, either who were against lockdown or who made a different personal choice to stay unvaccinated.
But one of the things that really got to me is I remember walking in the park once. So I have 4 children. My daughters have each had boyfriends at the time, and we're all walking together. And members of the public thought it was OK to shout us about social distancing and how many... Honestly, I was so frustrated. I used to look at them and say, what is wrong with you? What has happened to you that you feel it's all right to shout at me? I'm out walking with my children and you feel it's OK to shout at me. That's what society became during lockdown. That's what they felt they were emboldened to do, to just scream at people, call people names, and we had no personal autonomy. I'm very, very glad I broke all the rules.
The amnesty is I don't want to just move on from that time. So many people say to me, oh, you've just got to forget, you've just got to move on. But the problem is, how do we learn lessons, Tonya? Because believe me, there's going to be another virus soon, whether it's leaked by China, whether it's some sort of chemical weapon from another bad actor of a state. And how are we going to deal with it? If we don't tackle what actually happened, then we might do the same thing again.
That's exactly the point. Unless these people are brought to shame, really, because they have to be shamed, and apologise for what they've done, then it will happen again. And that's the biggest point, isn't it? That they have to apologise for what they've done. We have to keep going on about it.
Trying to delete what they did. Did you see Andrew Neil, for example? He had posted some terrible things about denying the unvaccinated rights in society, and he's just gone and quietly deleted that tweet. Why not have the balls to actually stand up and say, I got this wrong. I'm ashamed that I wrote this, but instead what they're trying to do is just rewrite history by backing away. But unfortunately, Tonya, for them, fortunately for us, we have the receipts, don't we? We have the tweets, we have the columns that were written, and we know what these folks said.
That's what's so wonderful about it all. We have it all. And I will have full respect for anybody who stands up and says, I've got it wrong, I'm sorry. I still can't forgive you because, you know, before this all started, I was a TV cook. And I used to work on anti-ageing and what creams to put on your face and things like that. And if I had the know-how and the intellect to find out and dig a bit deeper and to realise that it's a complete load of rubbish, to start thinking, hang on a minute, how does an airborne virus work? And hang on a minute, this medication that we know nothing about could be doing damage to us later. Should we just wait a moment and just explore things and read a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper before we start mandating things, forcing people to do certain things? If I can do that, then anybody can do it. And all of these journalists, the mainstream media journalists who frightened the life out of people, and our children are still frightened. Our children are still suffering from learning difficulties and all the things that they've gone through. So whilst we still suffer, whilst we still have people going into hospital now, having their cancers seen too late, or all their illnesses that's happened, whilst that's still going on, we cannot have an amnesty. You have to take it on the chin, apologise, say we made a mistake, and say we will never do it again.
The broadcaster and activist Tonya Buxton. Thank you so much, Tonya. But it's time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Amanda Patel, let's kick off with you, your nominee for GB, please.
Well, hello. It's got to be Leslie Phillips, star of... I didn't realise he was in 140 or 150 films, although there was the Carry On Nurse, which Mum dragged me and my brothers out of because it was so rude. Ding dong.
Calvin Robinson, your nominee.
Mine's honorary, and it's Matt Walsh, who recently had a documentary on the Daily Wire protecting trans children, but also he was just on Joe Rogan and put forward a very generous articulation of what marriage is.
And Rebecca Reed, your nominee.
In a great act of self-promotion, mine is me, because my novel, The Will, is out on Thursday. It is in no way political.
What's it about?
It's a sort of Agatha Christie-style murder mystery type thing, but it's really good. Buy it.
I love this. Of course, Rebecca Reed is our Greatest Britain because we don't often speak about Rebecca's day job, which is obviously as a hugely successful best-selling author. So what's it called? The Will?
It's called The Will. I'm not as big a seller as Nadine Dorries, but a girl can dream.
One day. One day. Amanda Patel, your Uni and Jackass nominee, please.
ITV for putting Olivia, is it Pratchett?
Olivia Attwood.
Attwood, that's the one. For putting her on I'm a Celebrity when the girl's already got ADHD and suffers severe depression and anxiety attacks. And they said she had some kind of minor incident. I'm just hoping that it isn't that the filler in her lips exploded.
Oh, Amanda, she's a great girl, actually. Really like her. So
You always love
that was mean. Calvin Robinson, your nominee.
Roger Hallam. This bloke founded Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Animal Rebellion, Insulate Britain. He is the king eco-extremist and he is a domestic terrorist that should be proscribed.
And Rebecca Reed, your Uni and Jackass nominee.
Mine was chosen before the news tonight. Well, before it broke. But yeah, Gavin Williamson, because you can't bully your co-workers wherever you work, whatever you do.
Well, Amanda Patel has a different view on what's going to emerge on that, so I guess we will see over a matter of time. But look, I'm going to go with Calvin Robinson, actually, because Just Stop Oil is such a shady organisation, and what Hallam's doing. And actually, I read in one of the newspapers today, he's staying in a £3,000 a month house and he's wanting his disciples to pay for it. You know, this is almost becoming a cult, and that is really worrying. And actually, you look at those members standing up on the bridges and they do look like members of a cult. Hopefully, I'm going to have one of them on tomorrow, actually, because I want to ask them about all of this. But Calvin Robinson, Rebecca Reed, Amanda Patel, fabulous superstar panel this Tuesday night. I am back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Next up, it's Headliners, though. Good night.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Ray Addison. Headliners is on the way, but first here's the latest from the GB newsroom. Sir Gavin Williamson has resigned from the Cabinet following new allegations about his conduct. In his resignation letter, Sir Gavin said the claims were becoming a distraction to the good work of the government.